another episode of Old School Wealth Building with Abraham and Friends. Now, we're about to end up the month of May. This year is fire. So, you know what I said? Let me do something different. I'm going to bring in some of them friends today, and we're going to talk about a topic that we all going to encounter. No matter who you are, you will encounter retirements. So that's going to be the topic of the day. And we're going to talk to some folks that retired, or I like to call transition from the military, because at 38, 38, it's a little young to retire in the sense of retirement, how we look at it. So I want y'all to jump on, enjoy this ride as I bring in my two guests for the day. And we're going to talk about this retirement thing. So, I'm moving my mouse around, but I want y'all to hear them nice beats too. That's them beats be rolling, keeping your focus. I got it. And we are off. Let's go. Now, joining me today is going to be JD, retired Air Force, currently working into the civilian sector. I also brought back one of my favorites. Is going to be Ken, working in this retirement. He retired as well, 38, 39. Now, we both all retired, still working. And you know what? I told the audience what we're going to talk about today is retirement. Something that we all do. But before we kick that off, let's hear a little bit about our guest for today. JD, let the people know who you are.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for welcoming me to Abraham's channel. I've been known as a brother for a long time. Down here in Middle Georgia with the family. And like he said, Air Force veteran, active duty, enlisted from 1986 to 2007. Moved down here with the family on a dream and a prayer. Didn't know what to do really. 39, got here at Warner Robins, and I've been working for the Air Force on the civilian side ever since. So now I'm an Air Force civilian, and I'm getting ready for retirement again. So this time it'll probably be my last W-2 job. Anyway, thank you for welcoming me to
last W-2 job. Sounds good. Hey, refresh the people, Ken, on who you are.
Hey, I'm Kenneth Fowler from DeWitt, Arkansas. Retired Air Force. DeWitt, Arkansas. They're not ready for that. Retired Air Force, 3 kids and a wife. Would go back to DeWitt, but my wife would leave me if I did. So we're here in San Antonio, enjoying life, hanging out with my man Abe. He's teaching me about finances himself, supposedly. I'm still broke.
Yeah, most of that's because of him. If you go back and look at my actual videos, you'll see there's some information out there that anybody can grab hold to. Hey, y'all know I keep it simple. I'm only going to bring y'all 2 PowerPoint slides because I don't believe in death by PowerPoint. So I'm going to bring that first one up so we can kick it off and we can put everybody in context with it. So, gentlemen, we're going to have this first slide. If I can get this to work right, modern technology be acting up sometime. There we go. I knew it was there. So, gentlemen, the way I broke these slides down was, why is retirement a scary word? Age 20 to 40, and then 41 to 62. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all give y'all perspective on why is retirement a scary word? Just a word of retirement.
Well, as a newbie, I'll go ahead and start again as JD. I think personally, retirement never been in my brain. As a kid, everybody worked. Again, the parents was about 40, 30, 40s. So nobody talked about retirement. So when I hear retirement, that means that you're at the end of that line. I didn't understand that it is kind of like an end of the line, but it doesn't mean that you are going to be put out the pasture. So I never even understood that word. That word was never talked about. So that's why it was maybe sheer ignorance. It was just never talked about until I joined the military. And it took some years for me to understand what military retirement was. And even that was scary because people told me once you retire, you got about 5 good years and then boom, you're out. I remember I used to hear that. So that was scary. And then as I progressed, got married and started to work my way through the ups and downs in finances and seeing things that I wasn't prepared. And my buddy Abraham knows about that. That became scary because I just wasn't prepared. And then I realized that that money that I was going to make from my retirement check wasn't going to be enough to raise a family or to continue with a family at a young age. So that's why it was scary for me.
We see it now in the economics that we see, and we hear it on the news, and inflation and all this thing is running. And we're like, you know what? Retirement, if we look back at our parents and our grandparents, they were conditioned to work. They were conditioned mentally to work. There was no talk of a 401k. There was stock market. We didn't do and we didn't have those conversations. And that's one of the biggest things I think I want to bring with old school wealth building is we need to have those conversations, and we need to have that language. We need to have that conversation in a language that introduce something that's going to benefit the next generation, but also benefit our generation. Ken, what you got for that? Why is retirement a scary word?
Yeah. Well, I want to echo JD, his sentiments exactly. It's interesting. About 12 years ago, they did a study. I think Harvard University did a study on retirement, and they were more geared towards military members. And they found that after they retired, they didn't live much longer after they retired. And I think it was like 5 or 6 years or something like that. So I think that's a scary word in that sense, like he said, is especially in our community, our culture. We look at retirement as you work until you die.
That's right.
And that's been in the low income environment. That's been kind of their mantra. We just work until we die. There is no planning. We make just enough money to get by, like good times. They didn't save any money. They didn't have a savings account or a 401 because we just trying to get by. So I think that's been a cultural trend that continues, even though we are more educated, have more wealth or bigger incomes. That mindset in the back of our mind, it still exists and prevents us from doing things. The other thing is life. Some things come up and extend your retirement plans. Personally, my wife and I are in plans of buying a new house, and this house is a lot more expensive than I anticipated. So, that extends my expectation of retirement. I could get a smaller house, but again, I try to keep her happy. So there's a variety of things. Even
Ken trying to get us canceled on the podcast.
Yeah, we talk about our kids. They're staying in the house longer than they used to. That extends retirement for one reason or another. So a lot of retirement issues.
Well, Ken, let me ask you a question. Do you think that with the insert of technology, now, before, in order to learn anything, you had to go to the library, your local library. You had to have a library card. There was no internet when we was kids. There was no Google. There was no computer sitting at every home. There was no smart watches. And this is for both of y'all. You think that technology lends itself to us being better prepared or getting better prepared for retirement at an age before? Because when you talk to that 41 and 62, that's when we really start having to look and say, okay, what steps do I need to take to prepare for after I finish working? So you think technology lends itself to that?
I certainly do. Technology exposes you to a lot of different opportunities. When we talk about investment and things like that a lot, that internet and that technology has broadened that view of who can invest and who does invest. Before, only rich people we figured invested and save for the future. Now everybody can if you take if you're disciplined enough. So those things are very important to our progress.
What you got on that, JD?
Well, I'm gonna jump on that last word Ken said, discipline. And like with everything, that's what it takes. Now, personally, I was taught discipline. I think we're all from a similar age where discipline meant, whoopings and stuff like that. So it really wasn't like, okay, I had to be disciplined to do something other than unless you play sports. but the word discipline always came with trying to keep you in control. It seems like for me, it wasn't like, okay, my mindset is to keep doing something repetitively to achieve a goal. It just wasn't in my purview. So I agree with Ken. I agree with both of you guys that as technology came, you start seeing that, wait a minute, access is here. So you might have lost about 10, 15 years, but that access is there to get you caught up. But again, if you don't have that discipline, if you don't fight those old habits, at least for me, you'll see that you're battling a couple of things, but you can prevail. So that's the good news in it. But I definitely agree with him that we want to say the World Wide Web and the access, Share Builder, all of these new things that came along in the last 20 years has shortened the window, or it brought us as a community closer. But if we don't have that discipline, we're going to still be spinning our wheels.
Now, what are y'all thoughts on now they're floating that 70 is a new retirement age? And you kind of want to throw the millennials or a younger generation in saying that, hey, y'all got to work longer in order to be able to have what we have, or even just have a portion of what we have. So at the end of the day, are we looking at 70 now and we're saying, well, if you put it out there, I'll take it, versus saying, hey, mentally and financially, I need to get ready for 65 and not worry about 70? Because, at our age, we got kids. Some of our kids are transitioning into their own lives. They're having grandkids, or you got a situation where you have a younger child at the home and they're trying to transition from either high school or college, and you want to be there financially for them, because you don't want to. I hate when people say, I want to say you got to do it yourself. No, I want to give you a platform to jump off on. What I want to see you do yourself is take advantage of all the information out there and execute on it. So how do y'all feel about 70 being even just floated out there as a new retirement age?
Well, I'll jump on this one first, Ken. Real quick, I think it's a couple of things. We're living a little longer. My mom, God rest her dead, she had, health conditions and everything, and she passed at 61. So a lot of folks, at least in my line, genetically, hereditary, they might have dealt with certain illnesses, certain habits. So they were passing away sooner. But now with, again, back to technology, people are living a little longer. But I also think it's a little nefarious. I think as long as we're working longer, we're feeding into the system, which is good. I'm a capitalist. But I think we're feeding into the system to support all of the spending and all of the people that aren't contributing as much to Social Security and everything like that. I think we're in a unique I think we're in a unique position because I know this is a broad audience, but for military folks, we're in a unique position that we do have at least 1 to 2, some of us 3 checks for life, and we're making, some of us fortunate enough to make as much as some dual income families. So 70 for me personally, that's that's too far, because we're all from the South. What they said, tomorrow's not promised. So my thing is the 65, like you said, Abe.
I got to be a jump and skip. Ken, what you got on that?
Well, first of all, JB, I'm retired military. Don't be putting all my checks out there. Everybody don't need to know how many checks I get.
We'll make sure the IRS don't see this video, man.
No, it's interesting. We are healthier now. And a lot of people look at what am I going to do with my time if I do retire? I already have my plan. I'm going golfing.
There you
So
go.
it's no big deal.
I'm going with you.
Again, that's a scary word. I'll go back on JB's comment earlier about discipline. It's amazing how profound that word is, how in our culture we look at that discipline as, something really negative.
That's
but
right.
Really, discipline is a positive word. It's an adjective for a positive person.
Nice.
But it's just cultural trends, and for us to start looking at that word in a more positive light, and I think that'll make a big difference too. as far as being, raising that age to 70, I'll tell you, my initial plan was to retire at 62. I'll be healthy enough. My wife and I can travel Europe, wherever we want to go. Um, but this new house, we decided
Yeah.
to pay off some of our kids' student loans, so they wouldn't be burdened with that. And that's the choice that we made. So we're looking at 65 now, and so as life evolves, as things change in your life, and even the economy, the ebbs and flows of the economy will dictate how far you can go. I don't want to get up to 70 because I want to be able to get on a plane without, backaches and things like
With
that.
with that
I want to
wheelchair
be
getting you to the front.
Yeah. I want to be able to walk the streets when I go there instead of in a
Right.
wheelchair. So, yeah.
You know what,
Before
JD?
you
Go
get on
ahead,
that
JD.
real quick, Dave, I want to get on that because you made a good point. I just was thinking because I'm gearing toward the next few years, right? And which is going to be before the 65 age. Calculated it, and I'm looking at okay, yeah, I'm going to have to still going to have some bills and everything. We know that's life,
Mhm.
but I also have a 21-year-old at the house, and I'm fine with it. And so I already did the same thing. We made a decision. So okay, we're going to take care of that first car, and we're going to take care of that bachelor's. So yes, and plus she's living, air, water, lights. So well, yeah, we're going to
Yep.
take care of that. So yes, I did commit to that. So I did all of those things pop up in my head, gentlemen. And I was thinking today, I was like, man, am I thinking about it too fast? Because here's the one kick, and I talked to Abe about this, that I don't utilize the time that I have now. It's like I just go to
Mm.
work, come home, go to work, come. And you
That's
generally
it.
obviously golfing, Abe. I know you got some other extracurricular activities. So that's kind of changing my thinking. It's like, whoa, if I as I'm taking care of my finances, filling that other time, meaning define my purpose more. So I have that smooth transition. So when I do retire, I can keep it moving. I can keep it moving, take care of the finance, take care of my daughter, take care of the home, household expenses, vacations, what have you, and be able to transition. So yeah, that really sparked something in my brain there.
I think that we come to this, I'll call it crossroads, where time is more valuable than money,
Yes.
and we want to utilize that time doing things that we want to do. But Ken and JD bring up a good point in the fact that we've all served in the military, we've all retired from the military. Let's do a little financial literacy right quick and say, okay, now we receive an annuity for the rest of our lives. That little switch in saying what it actually is an annuity that we get every month, and it works into our budget. Now, at the same time, under the financial literacy umbrella, when did you feel, at what age you understood I need to do something financially to prepare for retirement? When did it say, bing, that light came on? And was like, man, you know what? I need to get to retirement. Because I'll tell anybody, when I was going through the military, I didn't think about retirement not one time until maybe the year before or 2 years before I reached 20 years, which is all you need to retire from the military is 20 years. And I was like, man, I can actually retire from this. But I never called it retirement. I called it transition because I was 38 years old. I was like, I'm not going to retire. And that goes back into the mindset of looking at our parents. They didn't 38, they was just kicking it. They was working. They didn't think about no
I'm
retirement.
almost still having kids.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
having us. So, but we're put in a position where now we're making that transition, or we're making a transition at a point of our lives. So when did it kick in and say, hey, you know what? I got to start looking at retirement, because now we're kind of falling into that out of the 40 window into the 4162 window. Now we prepping.
Hmm. I think quality of life plays a big role in that. My quality of life when I first retired, um, I was like, shoot, I can retire and kick back and get this retirement, and I'll be good.
Wow.
But ambitions and trips and bigger houses came into play. Oh, I like this nice car. All those things starting to add up. So you have to rethink. Even after I retire, I want my quality of life to be at a certain level. And we, in military, honestly, we're accustomed to a level of quality of life that may not be like everybody else's. There's people who are living in poverty that we don't even we can't even comprehend the struggles that they have. So our quality of life and our mindset on that quality will dictate a lot of those retirement decisions, I believe.
Yeah, same for me. And I agree. Um, wow, thinking of retirement, I think it was around that same time of you know 38 or so, probably. Wait, you know what? We were still in Okinawa.
Mm.
So it was about. It was getting close to. I was getting close to leaving Kadena
In
Air Base.
2004, 3,
2005.
2003. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you left. I left.
I
I left a
left
year
there in
before you.
2006. So probably because check this out, 2005, I was still on that trying to make rank thing for your audience that that's not familiar with the
Promotion.
military is promotion. I was E7 and I'm still trying to. I'm on that stress train and trying to make that E8 and everything. And so so that's at my 20 year. I canceled a set of orders to Gwangju in Korea because I would have to go by myself. So
Mhm.
didn't change the decision. So kept family together. Boom, we wound up in Nebraska. I'm still thinking. I was already over 20 years, but my brain, and I was 39. I was still thinking of, man, well, I can do a couple more years and maybe I can make this promotion. So it still didn't click. I did a couple moves, but it really wasn't significant. Meaning, I got like some my own insurance and stuff like that, but it still wasn't clicking. I still had a lot of bad habits. So yeah, it didn't click for me for a minute until probably after I retired from the military. It's like, oh my God. So how am I going to continue? So I'm telling you, it's something.
It's. I mean, it's something that we know we don't really talk about. And before we dive into the slides, it's something that I think that we need a platform like this so we can have these discussions. Because really, quit coming over to my house at the barbecue and not talking about nothing.
Yeah.
We'll circle up, we'll do things, we'll go to different events, but we won't talk about the important stuff. And it only takes 5 or 10 minutes. I guarantee if you got a group of friends and y'all say, you know what, come over to the barbecue, everything is going to be paid up and ready to go. But I'm going to need us for 30 minutes to have a talk about how we educate the youth for tomorrow, how we finance our home. Man, you'll lose half your barbecue crew. You won't even see them. They'll stop coming. They'll be like, man, he always want to talk about stuff. We want to talk about things that are going to impact not just ourselves. In this conversation here is retirement, but we're also looking at, do I want my next generation to work until they're 65? Do I want them to work until they're 70? So let's take a look at a couple of topics that we think that may help you to make those decisions and better kind of navigate them waters to getting to the next level of retirement. I'm not even going to say Social Security going to be out there because we ain't worried about that today. Now, here we go. Now, the slides are broken up into 2 slides because I like to do it simple. 2 slides only. That first slide is 20 to 40 years in age. And the first slide segment is entitled Learn to Work. That's a good one. Learn to work, because we all learn to work. Now, who taught y'all how to work?
My mama.
Not your mama. Your mama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my mama.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. My aunt, my aunt raised me. Listen, you was talking about your country town, and this country town of Manning, South Carolina. We lived off Civil Road, rural South Carolina.
Civil Road.
Yeah, so my aunt and my aunts, because I have a younger aunt, and they did chores and stuff like that, but also uncles. God rest the dead. My uncle Ransom, he grew tobacco, so we was young out there in them fields. My uncle Burners, because when you're your nephews, that's cheap labor. That's when black people were still out in the fields. For people that don't know, we used to pick. Black people used to be out in fields, y'all. I'm just gonna say it bluntly. We used to be out there, at least the rural ones like us in South Carolina. We was picking tobacco. They used to call it crapping.
I tried cucumbers one time, and that was good enough for
Oh
me.
man, cucumbers, buckets of cucumbers. Some people did watermelons. So yeah, so that work was like innate. You had to do. Then you had to cut wood because we had a wood stove. So
that wood stove.
Oh yeah, we had to cut wood. So didn't like it. I ain't gonna lie to you, but that's why I got that. And then when I was living in New York, it was more of a hustle type of thing, you know.
Oh, hold on, wait a minute. So you lived in the rural South, in South Carolina, Manning, South Carolina, but you also spent time in the city living in New York. How was the difference in that?
Oh shoot. Now my mom, she had a good job. She worked at Citibank. She was a night auditor. You know, she's a South Carolina woman, and so the work was just to mind my little brother and to do, you know, to maintain our little living space in our room and apartment and everything like that. But there was no real work. But I had to go out there if I wanted to get a little extra money. I would work for the newsstand, so I would, you know, fold the Sunday paper because it had all the sales and the funny papers. So the guy would give me a couple dollars doing that, and then if anybody, I would hit him up along the block on 161st Street. If they want me to pass out flyers, I would pass out flyers. So I was doing that type of work, and then, you know, so God willing, I was able to leave before the crack era because it's no telling what I'd have been doing after that. My brother always told my little brother, he said, "Man, you left just in time because you know,
crack is whack."
Right, late 70s, early 80s, they get caught up because they're trying to do those legal hustles, and then somebody can say, "Hey, man, take this and run it over there," and unfortunately, a lot of people get caught up. But yeah, that's the type of work went from little stuff like that.
I mean, Ken, you know, hey, learn to work. I mean, you know, we all have that avenue, which brings us to that conclusion of how we learn to work. My grandfather worked a job cutting down trees, but he also grew a garden. We had fresh eggs. We had fresh vegetables. I mean, as a kid, I spent most of my time in Atlanta during the school year, and I spent my summers in South Carolina, that little same town, Manning. Spent my summers down there. So I got an appreciation for city life, but also got an appreciation for rural life, which is way different. And you look at it and you say, okay, but we as individuals coming up, we learn from others. So we saw our parents working. We looked at our environment, our surroundings. You know, we had friends that did things and we wanted to do them. Education, you know, what were we doing? Ken, out there in Arkansas, what was y'all doing?
Hey, my mom, perfect example of a strong Black woman. She worked full-time job. She came home and cooked a real meal, a full meal every night. She cleaned. She did the finances. So watching my mom do all of that and then some, and was very active in the community and in church. I saw real work in action. So a strong woman that was an example for not just for me, but my whole family in the community. So as far as work ethics, I should not have any. I get lazy a lot of times, but I should never have a problem with work ethics because I had a perfect example.
Wow.
I mean,
they gave me chills, Ken. That reminds me of my Aunt Dot. She did the same thing, man. She came home. She made sure everybody was fed, made sure we did our little bit of stuff. But she was out there washing clothes, my other aunt as well. And she was out there with the community, the church. You know, she was Eastern Star. So she was doing all, I mean, I don't know how they did it back in those days.
Yeah. I don't either.
I ain't gonna lie. It made it seem like they made it look easy compared to what we look at today and be like, oh man, I need to take a nap. I got to take a knee. And it's like, I don't never remember them taking a knee. I remember them, I mean, just getting it done. And I'm not saying anything about any other generation or whatever. We're just talking about our generation and what we saw, but also it's what we represent to our kids and what they see now, you know. So we're still doing everything that we did, but we also learned that from them. And that's where I wanted to come in there in our 20s. We're still closely related to their age and now, because now our kids are in our 20s and 30s. So we're looking at them like, hey, y'all around our same age, you know, what's going on? So here's where those rails, here's where it falls off at. Spending. Now, when you're at 20 to 30, that's when we start our spending habits. Now, if we don't get the habits of financial literacy in our early teens or late teens, we take whatever habits we see. We emulate whatever habits our parents or our parents' friends show us. Just like we learn to work, you learn to spend. And the first thing we learn is how to get that loan. Now, I didn't get no student loans for college because I just wasn't cut out for college at first. That's how I ended up in the military, because I didn't want to go to college. When was the first time any of you touched the word loan? And it was like, oh, man, I'm going to take out a loan.
Interesting. When I was in the military, you know, those across the street from the base, those sharks, loan sharks.
Oh man, Curtis Mathes and
yeah. I
we'll
think
get your money to you in one day.
I needed some extra money. I think it was maybe it may have been $100 that I borrowed from this company, and I ended up paying probably $150 back, and that's like a week later or something like that. So really horrible experience with those loans. So it kind of got me. It took me aback when I started thinking about how much interest I paid and the fees that I paid for that. So I think that was my first glimpse of getting a loan, and I got a lot more cautious on spending and getting loans because of that.
Yeah.
Now hold on, JD. I want you to circle back around to loans, but I want that family responsibility question for you, in the sense that, you know, some of us went off into the military, or even if you go off to college and you get a better job that's paying you more, we find ourselves in a position to help the family out. Now, sometimes helping the family out can be positive, sometimes it can be detrimental, but the family responsibility weighs on how you look at finances as well. What's your thoughts on that one?
Go ahead, Ken. You talking to me?
I think he's talking to you, JD.
Oh, okay. Wow, family responsibility. And you're talking about the family before we join, or no?
No, I'm talking about once you become somebody that has a different amount of income.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You become that focal point of the family now from an income perspective.
Yeah, you know, for me, I think, you know, because like I said, once I went back to South Carolina, you know, the only job I had at the time, because we still kind of working on the fields, but President Carter had the CETA job program. I don't know if y'all remember that. So
you went way back.
Yeah, so I had that little bit of money, but the thing about it, any money we made, we had to, you know, basically, you know, we didn't have to, but you gave your aunt, and it was her house, so we gave up that money. So I think I always resented that. So by the time I made my own, and I remember talking to my aunt one day when she was saying about loans. Now, back then, it was pretty much like what Ken was saying, like sharks, where they would, I don't know who these people were, but she would get money from somebody, and then she would have to give it back. She would have to try to figure out that whole robbing Peter to pay Paul thing. And I remember saying to her, I'll never get in that situation. And she said, oh, yeah, you will. And she was right. So I was able to avoid the big loans and stuff like that at first. Back my first base, I wasn't the BX. I didn't get the what is that? The DPP. Yeah, I didn't get the DPP card or nothing yet until my second base. But I remember the first time with the loan, like I said, I was able to avoid the outside the gate loans, but I was trying to get a car, and I remember my aunt said she couldn't help me, couldn't co-sign it because you know, the rest of them so and so's had messed the credit up. So I was like, oh wow. So then I had to, you know, wait, re-enlisted, and that was my first loan I got on my own, and then it was off the rails after that. It was terrible. I should have never got that car. It started a bad habit. So we could talk about that later, but it started a bad habit. Once I didn't know nothing about credit scores, but man, I started learning how to get money. I tell you.
Look, that's on the list, man. Them habits. Hey, Ken, we're gonna switch up on you a little bit and say, hey, when did you get your first credit card and realize you had done yourself in?
Yeah, I still do myself in, so I haven't
Same
lost
here.
that trend. Uh, when I was a senior airman, I think, you know how when you don't have any money, you be searching for things. And I got a
That's right.
credit card, and I think the limit was like $500. Thank God it was on.
Oh, we rich, we
But,
rich.
man, when you got a credit card, that stuff goes quick. You can spend that money really quickly. You know, you go to the mall, take your girl out a couple of times, and boy, that adds up.
You take
Um,
somebody out $500? Oh, he broke.
no, no, no. This is just everything going on. And then at the end of the day, you know, the next month when the bill comes due, you got to struggle and try to make that thing happen. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good lead into our last thing for the 20s and 40s. And this thing about it is, these are the habits that we learned, picked up, followed, and the habits are what we need to look at changing. We can't build unless we change the habits, man. One of them, learn some bad habits. I'm gonna go through these habits. I'm gonna give y'all the titles of them. Feel free to speak on whichever one or all of them you want to speak on. But we got that street math. You know how that street math look. People give you that street math, man. Get rich quick. The fear mentality. You know, we fear what we don't know, and if we don't understand, we don't ask questions. We can't get better, smarter at it. Paycheck to paycheck. Oh, and we were you know, the military is unique in the sense that we get a paycheck regardless. So on the 1st and the 15th, you get a paycheck. But here's the problem: if it falls on Friday, you're pretty much going to be broke on Monday because you can party all weekend. Secondly, you know it's coming, so you spend like you know it's coming.
Oh yeah.
Also, another habit is, and when I say this, I'm not saying get rid of your friends, but sometimes your circle is the worst thing to your paycheck. I'm gonna say that again so nobody forgets it. Sometimes your friends are the
Amen.
worst thing to your paycheck. And and living your best life is not living beyond your means. I think a lot of things on social media today and everything else says that living your best life is like living outside of your means. So which one of y'all want to expound on any one of those? Because we've all experienced them all.
Oof. Paycheck to paycheck. I remember I was staff sergeant and we were stationed in Italy. It got so bad that I'd go to the BX because you overseas, you cash a
Oh
check. It'd take a
Going to
week or
Walmart,
so for that check to get through. So I
not
wouldn't
hot
have any
checks.
money. Don't tell the banker right now. That was years ago. But man, I'd catch that check and we'd live off that for about a week until the check came through. So that's paycheck to paycheck. But we made some hard decisions that we would commit to not getting ourselves into that rut, and that went on for a year. I mean, really. But you just got to, again, it goes back to that discipline thing. Um,
Oh, we're circling back around the discipline again. Okay, I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
it goes back to that discipline. You got to decide what's important.
What
yeah.
you got on this, JD?
Wow. I definitely, the one that's jumping out that actually rears its head even now is that fear mentality.
Mm.
Um, a lot of I was a bachelor for a long time, and a lot of in my friend group, it was about the partying and stuff like that. Clubs was big back in those days, so it was, and the people that did, and I used.
Wait a minute, let me say this. Clubs
Uh-oh.
are still big. You just too old to go now.
There you go. The
Yeah,
knees, hey, the knees ain't gonna. I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
go.
He said clubs are big back in those days. Yeah, they still
They
do
probably
that.
still big.
I said them drink prices are even bigger.
Oh man, just the clothes you got to wear, because if you're really out there clubbing, you want to get new outfits. And back then, for the younger audience that might be listening, we used to dress. I mean, we went from, it was no sneakers in the club. You wearing shoes,
Oh,
Stacey
dang.
Adams, Florshams. You wearing dress pants. You had starches. They may not know, gentlemen, creases. We had creases in our pants.
we
So,
still got creases in our pants.
we used to crease our jeans. So there's a lot of people don't realize that. So when you going out, you're trying to maintain the image. You're trying to be like that peacock. You want to spread your feathers. You want to be noticed. So anyway, so that fear mentality was for me. And again, this is a lot of retrospect. And what's big now, mental health. But the big thing also is to self-reflection, in my opinion, because you don't have to stay in that area. People will say, you can build, you can build a tent in the past, but don't build a house there. So you can reflect on some of the things so hopefully you can bring it forward. But yeah, for me, I don't know what dropped. That was Colin.
No, that wasn't.
That was a Barack dropped.
Barack.
You might have to edit that one out there. Barack jumped off the shelf.
He said you shouldn't be paying attention. I mean,
I should have grabbed him. But hey, I held him up 2 elections, so hey, I'm trying to get his boy this one now. Anyway, so yeah, the fear mentality is still it can be prevailing, but I'm an overcomer. I'm quite sure we all are overcomers, and we just got to fight it and know that we still got the time, we got the space, and a lot of us got that income. We just got to be, less fearful of making investments, wise choices with our money, and just go ahead and do it. I can tell you the story, but we'll talk about it another time. Abe had investment opportunity back in the day. I don't even think we called it investment in Germany. You probably don't remember this. You was talking about, it was in Germany, and I think your boy was going to open a barbershop. Who was that? That was
no, I did. You know what? You're talking about the hair salon in Tampa.
Hair salon. That was in the 90s. That was in the early 90s.
I did go through the
Abe was on this stuff early. I wasn't.
So we ran across the bank and realized what bank looks like up close and personal. Hey, man, we could go some stories. But here's the thing: the 20s and 40s, we want to change that in the sense that financial literacy and preparation, execution needs to be done before you get to your 20s and 40s. It needs to be done and set, and take the circle, man, and use the circle as a method of just growing and just sharing information. I think we get into the thing about not wanting to share information with each other. And then when we find information outside of the circle, we feel like we get that side eye. Well, why'd you go there to get that information? Or, why would you listen to that person over me? Because one, you didn't tell me anything, and at the end of the day, I'm looking for somebody to guide and help and motivate me to keep moving forward. Now we passed the 20s and 40s. We're going to say, okay, now we're looking at something for us where we're different in the sense that we can retire from a job after 20 years and receive an annuity for the rest of our lives. But the average person goes to school or gets a job and they work to 20 to 40 and they thinking nothing about retirement. The word doesn't even cross their mind. We want to put that into the vernacular and say, hey, you should always start preparing for it and building it so you can retire at whatever age you would like to. So let's take a look at some stuff when you get to your 40, I put it 41 to 62, that allows you to be able to have your money working for you versus you working for your money, and puts you in a better situation to share information with the next generation so they can build. So I find out when kids get summer jobs, because we're at that point now where your kids getting out of school for summer break, or they're getting out of school for summer break for college. And we say, okay, kid got to get a job. Do we really look at it as a job or an opportunity, or should we be looking at it saying, okay, how is this a building block? What's your perspective on that?
My perspective, any and everything should be a learning experience. So those jobs that they get in the summer will not pay the rent, will not pay the utilities and things like that. So it has to be a learning experience that they can grow, learn how to manage that money, getting a checking account and things like that, and feel what it feels like to pay some bills. Like, let's say if they buy their own clothes or something like that.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna stop you right there, Ken, because now we're repeating habits. Because remember, we just talked about it in the 20s and the 40s. We're saying, hey, we gave back, we worked, we gave the money to the household. In order for the household, for the next generation to do something different, we got to introduce something different and say, okay, let's talk in financial terms. How about them setting up their own Roth IRA? They got a job. Or selecting a job that has a profit sharing program attached to the job so that we get more than just getting up, going to the job, because we all learn to work. We already said it. We learn to work by looking at our parents and looking at ourselves, and kids going to emulate us. We get up and go to work. They're going to get up and go to work, but we want to put them in a better situation. So that's all I want to throw in there on you, Ken. Because one, It's what we said and what we put in place that helps them be better. So for your kids, don't just say, hey, go out and get a job. Do some research on that thing. Figure out how that job fits into a wealth building process for your kids. That's my 2 cents. I'm off of that soapbox. Sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, and I agree with Ken that it is basically a learning experience because you know I think when I break it down to my youngin, what the cost of things, I think sometimes it goes over their head, but they'll realize when they're out there. I don't think anything is any more expensive than it was back in the day. I just think that the money has to be managed differently, and learning it, through even menial jobs or what do you call them, gig working economy right now is something. Learning your own money, maybe sliding your parents a few dollars, taking over a bill that your parents probably used to. Yeah, I think definitely is a learning experience.
Well,
But
hold on, JD. Let me set you up too, since I already got Kim once.
come on, I'm
Tell me
ready.
the
I'm
difference.
ready.
Tell me the difference between McDonald's in Japan and McDonald's in the US. What's the primary difference between those two? Both of them are McDonald's, except in different countries.
Mhm.
Now, because we talk about going out, and most kids, they'll get a fast food job. We'll say that. They'll go out and get a fast food job, easy to get, disposable employees to a certain extent. Now, what's the difference how they look at it in Japan versus how they look at it in the US?
Hmm. Well, off the bat, I probably think culturally there's a cultural difference. You got a more homogenous society in Japan, so
Mm-hmm.
there's a cultural difference. Here, it's a lot more distractions. They got the same probably over there, but you got more, and a lot of people are in their phones, so they're seeing a lot and a lot of distractions. So I'm not sure exactly, but I know the McDonald's corporation is basically the same, but what people that are working there and how much they're making, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm looking at it from this perspective here, how they look at fast food. When you go in there, uniform is together,
Yes,
environment
yeah,
is
that's correct.
clean. I'm not slipping on that greasy floor. They don't look at fast food like the US look at fast food as a job. It's actually something that's to say, hey, we're going to take pride in what we're doing. Well, the
Gotcha.
US to me looks as a disposable employee. So I wanted to say, if you put your kids out there to get jobs, do some research on the job and see how it's going to benefit them past working there during the summertime. I think there's a great story in Jet Magazine. I know most of y'all don't remember what Jet Magazine is,
Mm.
but a young lady worked at McDonald's, ends up going to college for 4 years, getting a degree, and coming back to that McDonald's. And they couldn't figure out why. She's one of the youngest franchise owners of a McDonald's, because McDonald's requires you to go to what's called McDonald U, which is their
Yeah.
university, but she's already been in the system. So having a plan helps out for learning to work, because we show them how to work. We put them to work. We put them through tasks. Some of these new habits, and these are not new habits. I think some of the habits that are being introduced to us wasn't something that we spoke on in the household. So I'm pretty sure I'd never heard of a 401k until maybe 20 years ago. And that's when they introduced it in the military. So we all had a savings and checkings account, but the word mutual fund, I didn't hear until we crossed past JD in 1992
Yeah.
when we was in Germany.
Yep.
I didn't hear
Germany.
about stocks until 2000, maybe
Mm.
2001. I didn't start doing anything with CDs until last year. So
Well,
there's
I got
always
you
a
there
growth in
too.
new habits.
Hmm.
So Ken, what was the first time when you heard about a 401k?
401k military. You know how they transition into that 401k thing. The first time I'd heard about that. Well, actually, yeah. Before I retired, I think it was in 2000, like 2001. I had a financial advisor that
Oh,
talked to me about that. But before then, I didn't know what a 401k was, or or cared about a 401k. I was just trying to
I-
survive.
so why didn't it register, even though we know it was all the way around us all the time? We may not have had access to it doing what we were doing. But our peer groups they were in environments for 401ks. When the last time you've been to somewhere and you and your friends were talking about y'all 401ks and what y'all investing in? Either one of y'all can jump on now.
Well,
Yeah.
smaller
I'm kicking y'all out the
occasion.
barbecue.
Yeah, I was just going to say a smaller occasion. We had a little cookout, and me and the buddy was talking about investment, and he was thinking about how much more he wanted to learn and everything. A little younger than I, but so that was the last time. But like Ken, it was the military for me when you started getting those terms. Because if one thing about me, I remember the stuff I didn't do more than some of the stuff I did, and I remember each time the things that if I'd have did. Now the if thing, right? The first kind of investment I made, which I'm quite sure you gentlemen did as well, is that GI Bill, because we had a choice. They say you do $100 a month, you'll get college education. A lot of people said no. I remember that because they were like, man, $100 a month, we're E1s. And I went ahead and did it. So I think but I didn't keep that habit. And I remember an older guy said, if you invest X amount of dollars, I think it was 2000 back in the 80s. What was the max IRA back then? That was the first time I heard that.
Probably about $2,000 back in the 80s.
Yeah, I think it was $2,000. He said, if you kept doing that, he said, by the time you're my age, you'll have X amount of dollars. No, like Ken said, it just didn't resonate. Y'all remember the savings bonds? Remember they used to come around?
Those double EE savings bonds. Yeah,
I had a buddy had a suitcase full of savings bonds. That one didn't resonate. So it was kind of around, and it wasn't until Germany that it started becoming more prevalent. And and I dipped my toes in there a little bit, but yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't like that. What's that? The story about the parking garage attendant?
Oh, the one that was dyslexic.
Yeah,
he had more than the people that.
Go ahead, Ed.
He did what?
He was dyslexic, but he was a parking attendant. And what he would do was he would talk to the people, and that's how he used to take notes. And that's how he had a great investment strategy. Put 3 kids through college, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Had a robust portfolio, better than some of the people they were talking to. But he had the key was he listened and he executed. I think that's one of the biggest things in anybody's community is that you can get as much information as you want, but if you don't execute, it's nothing. Facts. We look at it and say, okay, how do we build wealth? In my opinion, is we don't build wealth through money, because money is the byproduct of a good process. So if you don't know the process, guess what? You'll never be able to retain any type of wealth. So you can't build and retain it and make sure it works for you. And that's what I think as we look at retirement in its entirety and how we direct it and what we do during that path, we have to become literate. We need to have a financial literacy on what processes work for us. So Ken, as we go through this right here and we're looking at this, there's some good information on the slides, everybody, but it's always good to have the real world conversation with folks. What would you change? What would one thing you said you would change in advice giving to your kids? And before you answer that question, tell the audience how old your kids are, because they need to, that puts perspective in the advice category.
I got 31, 26, and a 20. I got old people. Yeah.
You got young adults they can eat out of refrigerators. That's all.
Yeah. It goes way back to that word we started using in the beginning, discipline. They're going to have to, and it doesn't take much. Compound, money compounded over a period of time, really is what builds wealth. And there's no easy silver bullet that you fire and now I'm all rich and I'm ready for retirement. It just takes a level of discipline for a number of years. The race is not given to the swift or strong, but those who just hold out. And just like the parking attendant, he held out, I guarantee you, for years, but that paid off for him. So that's advice that I will continue to try to give to my kids, whether they listen or not, is another thing. but do we give up on speaking to them? Just continue to pound that in. That a little discipline now will pay off a bundle later on.
I mean, and this is for JD, because we got kids out there that entered into we want to put them there. We want to put them on the best foundation. So what's one foundational tool for wealth building that you're going to add or want to add to your daughter as she goes down this path of finishing up college, going through life, and going on her own path? What would you give her or add to her and say, okay, put this in your toolbox. This is going to work. You just got to understand what it is and execute it.
Well, Ken touched on it, and that's the power of compound interest. I know it sounds crazy and say, wow, you're going to give your daughter compound interest. Yeah, the power of compound interest, and it goes back again, a lot of these things are interrelated. If you have the discipline to put something in a savings vehicle or investing vehicle that's going to be bearing some type of interest, and if you just keep it going, it's going to compound. And so, yeah, the power of that. So you can take something very small over a long or a length of time. It could, it can grow exponentially. So that is one. I can get too deep with her on it, but she listens to some of it. So we'll see how it works.
I want to add this before we wrap this up is, I mean, we look at social media, we look at the media, and I want to get both of y'all opinion on this. I think it's very important. And they always characterize our community as we're going to be broke in the next generation or the next 10 years. Or we don't live at that level of financial success or wealth building that is being projected by other people in society. How do y'all feel when y'all see that? When somebody, and then we look at each other, because I talk to you gentlemen at least once or twice a week, and we have these conversations. But give me your opinion on this, on how you feel when you see those media projections of how our community is being portrayed.
Well, I'll start it, and so Ken can get it after that. I think a lot of it is not as factual as we are led to believe. I think it depends on where you're from, what part of society you're in, but everybody has access to capital, and it can be rough. But if you started out with a mindset with the future in mind, what's the Stephen Covey thing? Begin with the end in mind, even a little bit. If you just think about it a little bit, McDonald's or wherever, you can be successful, but you got to change that mindset. If you're in a poor mentality like I had, if you can change that over time, you definitely can make it, because there's no real excuses nowadays. There's a lot of societal things, but you can break that out, and money is a great equalizer. So you never hear me say that, oh, everything is all fair and squeaky clean. No, but I'm just saying that you can beat that. So I think it's something that people use to depress you, but I think from our people, we've made it through a lot of stuff, and we'll continue to make it if we just keep going forward, get our mind, body, spirit and check, and then have the right group of friends. Everything you have on the slide, Abe, if we just put that into work, listen to some of our elders, I think we can. I think we'll see what type of wealth we have, even though society may not have our best interest in at heart, but we just got to have our own.
Can take us on home. You got 1 minute.
All right. Hey, we those stereotypes are just like they said, they're stereotypes, but a lot of us buy into it, and I think that's really the problem. I'll say this, and I'm gonna challenge Eric about this. He's already committed to serve Omega, and we have a group called the Omega Gents, and we're mentoring those young men and talking to them about finance and about life and how to structure themselves. The more positive that we hear about ourselves and about others in our community, the more positive things that we can get out, the more we'll lift others up. In the media, who the pen is mightier than the sword. The other group of people are like whites. They have the pen right now, and they're writing these stereotypes down. And if we read it, we'll fall into that trap. I don't want to read. I want to get the pen and write it myself. And men who are successful in our community have to start grabbing those pens and writing a different narrative. We are not all thugs and gang members and things like that. We are successful young men, and we are raising successful young Black men. But we have to engage them where they are. Yeah, and women, yes. But we have to engage them where they are. And they don't see things exactly the way we see things. And sometimes that's for the best. So we can't, we talk about kids these days. The only thing that's wrong with kids these days is old folks like us these days. We have to engage them where they are, let them know that they are more than what people say about them. And I think that's when we start to make a difference and start turning the tides of success for young people.
You know, Ken drive it home. I think it's a community. We've always lived in that understanding that it takes a village to raise a kid, but it also takes a village to change. So I think if we look at it from that perspective, gentlemen, I've enjoyed it today. Old School Wealth Building is just made better by having y'all on the podcast for talking about retirement and also peppered in some other stuff. So I enjoy it always. And hey, for the community out there, if you take time to listen to the video, hope you enjoy it. The PowerPoint slides give some great information out. I'm going to sign off. Another episode of Old School Wealth Building is in the books.